Ever feel like truth is often way stranger than fiction?
Yeah.
Well, get ready, because today's deep dive is going to test that theory. We're talking about the Dogon people of Africa, the Sirius star system, and a really persistent story about, you guessed it, alien knowledge. You've given us some seriously cool research on this one.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that just grabs you, ancient culture meets cutting edge science, frozen a little what if about life beyond Earth. It's got all the ingredients of a great mystery.
It really does. Okay, so picture this for our listeners who are just tuning in. You've got the Dogon people living in a remote part of Mali. Their traditions go back centuries, and they've always had this really intricate understanding of the stars, like really intricate. But here's the thing that gets everyone's attention. They supposedly knew about Sirius B way before modern astronomers did. And Sirius B, it's not just any star, right?
You call it a white dwarf star. It's like this super dense, super faint companion star to Sirius A, which is the dog star, one of the brightest things in our night sky.
The one most people probably know, yeah.
Exactly. But Sirius B, you can't see it with the naked eye. At all.
So how could the Dogon have known about it? That's the million-dollar question. Or, well, I guess the million light-year question in this case.
And the story gets even wilder because we're talking centuries before telescopes.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. What exactly did the Dogon supposedly know about Sirius B?
Well, some say they knew about its elliptical orbit, which, think about it, you'd need some serious observation over time to figure that out.
Yeah, you're not just glancing up at the sky and noticing that.
Exactly. And on top of that, there are claims they knew its orbital period is roughly 50 years.
50 years? Wow. Okay, so if they couldn't see it, how did they know all this stuff? This is where those alien theories come into play, right?
Exactly. Enter the Nommos.
The what now?
The Nommos. In Dogon mythology, these are amphibious beings.
Hold on, amphibious. Like they live in the water.
That's the idea. And according to some interpretations of Dogon stories, these Nommos, they visited the Dogon people ages ago. And they, get this, shared this astronomical wisdom.
See, this is why I love a good mystery. It's got everything. But okay, let's play skeptic for a second. What does actual scientific evidence say about all of this?
Right. Well, when you start to look at the evidence, things get a little, shall we say, less clear-cut.
Oh, I bet.
So no one's disputing the Dogon have impressive astronomical knowledge for sure. But those claims about Sirius B specifically, they don't really start showing up until the 1930s and 40s.
So that's interesting timing. Because that's after modern astronomy had already discovered Sirius B, right?
Exactly. A lot of this information came to light through the work of these anthropologists, Marcel Grial and Germaine Dieterlen. They spent a ton of time with the Dogon, really documented their culture, beliefs, everything.
So it sounds like they were really thorough in their research, but...
But there's always a but, isn't there? Some researchers have suggested that maybe, just maybe, the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B, or at least the specific details about it, might have been influenced by earlier contact with Europeans.
Europeans, like explorers, missionaries, that kind of thing?
Right. People who were already talking about these astronomical discoveries. Think about it. New information comes in, gets woven into existing beliefs and stories. It's like a big game of telephone. Things shift, they change.
I know, it's like that game we used to play as kids. By the end, the message is totally different.
Exactly. And we humans were hardwired to find patterns to make connections even when they might not actually be there. And you add in a really, really compelling story, well, it's easy to see how things can get a little embellished over time.
So what you're saying is, it's totally possible that the Dogon story about Sirius B is a blend of, genuine astronomical knowledge that they had for centuries, mixed with some newer information that got incorporated along the way.
You got it. And look, that doesn't diminish the Dogon culture or their beliefs. Not at all. But it does highlight how important it is to approach any claim, especially one this extraordinary, with a healthy dose of critical thinking.
That's good advice for just about anything we encounter, I'd say.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get caught up in a good narrative, especially when it plays into our sense of wonder and the unknown.
Honestly, I think that's part of what makes this story so fascinating.
Right.
Whether it's totally true, partially true, or not true at all, it makes you think about the vastness of the universe and the possibility of other life out there. I mean, come on. Amphibious alien visitors sharing cosmic secrets. It's just cool to think about.
I know, right? And it reminds us that sometimes the journey of exploring a mystery, questioning what we think we know, that can be just as rewarding as finding a definitive answer.
I totally agree. This deep dive, It's been a wild ride. We've gone from ancient Africa to the depths of space and everywhere in between. But more importantly, we've explored how stories evolve, how we interpret information, and how our own biases can shape what we believe. And isn't that what this is all about?
You said it. It's about staying curious, asking tough questions, and never being afraid to dig a little deeper.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's exactly what we're going to keep doing on this show.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. And listeners, if you want to dive deeper into the Dogon, Sirius B, and all the mystery surrounding them, check out the sources we've provided. You might be surprised by what you discover. And hey, maybe you'll even come up with your own theories along the way. Until next time, keep exploring.
I'd like to talk about the Dogons, Sirius, and alien knowledge. From little white lies to cosmic myths, the Dogons are a people of around 100,000 people living in West Africa. Robert Temple, the Sirius mystery, says the Dogons met some ugly amphibious aliens, the Nommos, about 5,000 years ago. The aliens came from a planet orbiting Sirius, which is 8.6 light years from Earth, but we don't know why. These visitors, who are said to have come from outer space, appear to have provided Earthlings with some rather useless astronomical information. Today, though, there are many people who think the Dogon have had contact with aliens and have changed their customs as a result. One of the main pieces of evidence that Temple uses to back up this contact is the information that the Dogon claim to have about the star Sirius B, which is the companion of Sirius. But for the Dogon's information about Sirius to be taken seriously, they would have had to know that Sirius B revolves around Sirius and that a complete revolution takes 50 years. However, as we'll explain shortly, it's impossible that they could have observed Sirius at that time and analyzed its movements. One of the things Temple mentions is a sand painting the Dogon made to explain their beliefs, but the diagram he showed didn't show the whole thing. The original was shown to French anthropologists Marcel Griol and Germaine Dieterlen, who wrote about it. It seems Temple either misunderstood the Dogon beliefs or misrepresented Griol and Dieterlen's claims to fit this story. Griol and Dieterlen talk about a world renewal ceremony called Igui, which the Dogon hold every 60 years, and associate with the bright Sirius star, Sigu Tolo, which means Sigui star. Griol and Dieterlen say that the Dogon talk about another star, which they call Po Tolo, or the Digitaria star, Sirius B. They say it's really bright and it spins around a lot. Griol didn't try to explain how the Dogons could have known about a star you can't see without a telescope. He also didn't make any claims about what this knowledge might have been or how it was connected to ancient Egypt. Temple gives us an insight into some of the more unusual astronomical beliefs held by the Dogon. The Dogons believe in a heliocentric system and elliptical orbits for astronomical phenomena. It seems they also had knowledge of Saturn's rings and Jupiter's moons, among many other things. How did they get this information if not from extraterrestrial visitors? Temple asks. They don't have access to telescopes or other scientific equipment, so it's a mystery how they got this information. Temple's answer is that they got this information from amphibious aliens from outer space. On the other hand, some people who believe in the importance of African culture say that Dogons can see Sirius B without a telescope because their eyesight is enhanced by the amount of melanin in their eyes. Welsing, F.C. 1987. This was discussed at the first Melanin Conference in San Francisco on September 16th to 17th, 1987. There's no evidence to back up the Dogon's special eyesight or the equally unlikely claim that they received information from Black Egyptians with telescopes. Could this be from Earth? Carl Sagan was on the same page as Temple in thinking that the Dogon couldn't have got this info without talking to an advanced civilization. But Sagan thought this civilization was not from outer space, but from Earth. Maybe this source was just Temple's own ideas, which he'd picked up from Griol. He was probably basing these statements on information he'd got from an interviewee, Ambara, and his interpreter. Sagan said that West Africa has had lots of visitors from different technological societies from around the world. The Dogon have always been interested in the sky and astronomical phenomena. If a European had visited the Dogon in the 1920s or 30s, It's likely they would have talked about the star Sirius, the brightest star at the center of Dogon mythology, and similar astronomical phenomena. There was a lot of talk about Sirius in the scientific press in the 1920s, so it's likely that by the time Griol visited, the Dogon had some basic knowledge of 20th century scientific affairs, thanks to visitors from around the world. Or it could be that Griol's statements are driven by his own interest in the issue, rather than that of the Dogon. After all, he was pretty open about the fact that he wanted to save the African idea. When Walter Van Beek looked into the Dogon beliefs, he found no evidence that Sirius is a double star, or that Sirius B is extremely dense and has a 50-year orbit. In their everyday lives and rituals, the Dogon didn't place much importance on knowledge about the stars. The Dogon were more interested in the position of the sun and the phases of the moon when it came to their calculations. Apart from Griol's informants, no Dogon had ever heard of Sigutolo or Potolo. And it's also worth noting that even among Griol's informants, no one had ever heard of or knew that Sirius was some kind of double star, Ortiz de Montellano. Thomas Bullard says that Van Beek wanted to acknowledge the complexity of Griol's African beliefs, but also questioned his informants, suggesting that they had created new myths through confabulation, the unconscious memory of something that is not real in individuals. It seems that Griol either told the Dogons about Sirius B or misunderstood references to other visible stars near it. So, it seems there's no mystery about the Dogon knowledge of Sirius, which was supposedly brought by aliens. The only thing that's really strange is how people believe stories about aliens who can see in the dark or live in water. So, friends, today we took a closer look at the Dogon's intriguing link with the stars, the Sirius star, and conspiracy theories about aliens. But when all is said and done, the most surprising thing we discovered is this. It seems that humans have always needed fairy tales to help them deal with the unknown. The unknown can be scary or exciting, and it's in our nature to fill these gaps with imagination. The story of the Dogon and the Sirius star is a great example of this. On the one hand, there's this really advanced knowledge, and on the other, there's this legend that's grown and expanded over time and almost turned into a myth. This story shows how knowledge can change as it's passed down from one generation to the next, and how it can grow over time to become a universal tale. Aliens, extraterrestrials, cosmic secrets. These are topics that have always piqued our interest. Maybe the Dogon's knowledge of astronomy came from their cultural background and what they've seen. But one thing is clear. The line between fact and fiction can be much more blurred than we think. That's the end of our journey today. But the memories of this cosmic story will stay with us forever. It's up to you to decide whether this information is true or not. It's possible that the Dogons got this information from an unknown source. Maybe this information started out as small-scale lies and then grew into these huge cosmic myths over time. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll find evidence that will really shed light on these tales. But until we get more information, it'll remain a mystery. I encourage you to think, question, and, most importantly, to imagine. Remember, sometimes the most exciting discoveries are made when we're curious about the unknown. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.